Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Non-Traditional Headspace. It's Denise here. First of all, thank you for being here today and joining me. Like I said in my last episode, I wanted to focus more in talking about things that have to do with the workplace. So today, I want to talk to you about the relationship that we have in the workplace and how can we compare it to personal relationships that we have. Talk about toxic work environments, how to identify and what to do if you're caught up in one, and share a little bit of my own personal story with that. And of course, an update of what I'm doing these days now that I'm not working. But let's make a small use of words here in a playful way. I am not working, but I am working on it, trying to find something else, of course, because I'm kind of going crazy without having too much time in my hands these days. So I hope I find something soon. So let's get started. And to get started, the first thing I want to do is share with you a quote of someone that I have been reading lately. I shared with you this as well in my last episode. And it goes like this. So if I'm looking down, please just understand that I am referencing to my notes that I have in my computer here. Your mental health is everything. Prioritize it. Make the time like your life depends on it, because it does. This was said by Mel Robbins. And she couldn't be more right. We're going to be talking about that today. Why it is important for us to prioritize that mental health that everybody tells us to do, but we just think it's too much of a cliche to consider it important and weak. I'm not sure why the correlation that we make in our minds when we're told about this mental health is either negative or associated with weakness. And when I say negative, it's because, oh, if you talk about mental health, then there's something wrong with you. Again, sorry about the use of words here, but mentally, there's something wrong with you. And you're probably going to a shrink, which is a very, very derogatory term as well. But not really. Truth is, we need to understand that we have to acknowledge these terms and read and educate ourselves more about it, because most of the things that we're going through might have an explanation to it. But if you're just ignoring it on purpose, or if you're just afraid of learning about it because we're afraid to be judged, then that has to go. So after sharing that quote with you, of course, I'm going to jump into the first segment or topic that I would like to talk about, which is the decision to change careers. It's never easy, right? Especially if you're an age like mine. Well, like I told you, I'm 37 now, and I thought about this. My older sister went through this too, almost at the same age that I am going through right now, which is finding ourselves, whether it's forced upon us or a decision that we made ourselves, to look for something different than what we have been doing lately, or maybe something similar still, but it's still different because you're no longer in that company that you had been working for a long time now, and that you had built this relationship in a longer term. And whether we're kicked out, which is never the easiest thing to happen, that has never really happened to me directly. If I'm struggling right now, that it was more my decision than theirs to end the relationship. I can't imagine how people who actually get told from one day to the next that, okay, we don't want you anymore, thank you for your services, fuck off. That must be very, very hard. And for that, I have to say that I would like to express my greatest feelings of support towards you, because it's not easy. It does affect you mentally and emotionally. Now, there's studies about this that have been made. For example, there is Arminia Ibarra, who has made this psychological analysis and standpoint of societal shifts that people have to make when they're in their midlife career changes that prevail. And yes, midlife career changes. You know what I think when I say that? Midlife crisis as well. Because it's a great shock, to try to go through that and the same time as you're trying to pursue something that you feel like is going to be a better suit for you, without leaving behind the fears of, oh shit, I have to face now the world again and I have to start over at this age where nobody wants to hire you anymore because you're old. So I get it, it's scary. But there's examples that we should take into consideration in order to encourage us to understand that we're not the only ones trying to do this out here, and we're not the only ones going through it, and that there's people who have overcome the situations. And maybe they're a bit of cliche as well to bring these characters up, but I'll say them. You take it however you want to take it, okay? First one I want to bring up, if you're into fashion, Vera Wang. Did you know that Vera Wang, for instance, well, she was a figure skating professional. And at the age of 40, or when she was in her 40s, she decided to start, this new career of being a designer. And she's pretty successful, man. Like, she's making the buck out there. So, two does for Vera Wang, right? That's one. That's the first one. Then we have Jack Ma. A lot of people make fun of him these days because, well, one influential people these days called Elon Musk made comments about what he thinks his opinion is about Jack Ma. But I don't think Jack Ma really cares about what this person thinks, because he's doing pretty well for himself as well, And he overcame a situation in his life that nothing that somebody else says will ever take it away from him. So the point is that he is, as you know, the founder of Alibaba, which is something that he decided to do after shifting from teaching, which was his career before that, when he was in his 40s, to build a global e-commerce platform that is as successful as it is as Alibaba. And you know how that ate up the world of e-commerce. So that's another example. And there's also more and more cliches examples, and probably not the best one because it's a made-up character, but very much romanticized character, but I still want to put it out there. If you watch the movie The Pursuit of Happiness with Will Smith, well, his character, as you know, also used to do something very different before and found himself unemployed and everything for a long, long time, months there without employment, and he had responsibilities, especially having that little son he had. But he didn't give up, and he shifted careers also at the age of 40 in the movie, and he became a very good business career man related to the stock market. And you know how the story ends. It was very, very, very happy ending there. That's another one for you to have an idea that there's people out there. The point is that there's people out there who have made it. So that should just encourage us to understand that perhaps we can make it too. And that we shouldn't let go of the idea of keep trying. Now, I want to go and I'm going to be reading here because I want to make sure that I get the wordings right and the sourcing right. But there's articles that are very, very interesting that if you have never come across them, you should consider reading more about their content. And there's the HBR or Harvard Business Reviews that are published, that they have so much information about this, you know, decision of careers, toxic workspaces, etc. So I'm going to be reading from their one of their articles to you, like not all of it, but I'm going to be reading like extracts from it to you. I'm also going to read something about The Guardian. And yeah, I know that I'm quoting a lot of things that are mostly targeted to the American society, but Latin America, man, we are very much influenced by the American society. So it identifies with us in a very, very direct way. So that's why. So, with that being said, let's go to that first article of the HBR or Harvard Business Review and just talk about it. The first thing I want to start off is that this is going to be now moving forward to the next topic, which is toxic work environments related to mental health and, of course, directly to career situations. This Harvard Business Review is called, the name of the article is called, Keep Your Company's Toxic Culture from Infecting Your Team. And I found it quite interesting. It's an oldie, but it's a good one. Okay? We see this a lot. And there is so much that I related to because I saw it, I experienced it. So I want you to relate as well. And you're going to probably have a laugh internally because there might be things that you will directly also identify with. For instance, they mentioned that there's this character, okay, that has this particular sense of humor, you know, like mildly insulting humor. And for some reason, it's considered one of his strengths, like making these like stupid jokes, you know, like that people laugh about because he's in a privileged position. And yeah, he does get the laughs. But when talking to this person, he admits that whenever he makes a joke at the expense of other people's lives, you know, he feels like he cringes every time. So what's that say? Is this person being real? True to himself? No. He actually admits that it contradicts his personal values. But yet, he continues to portray this behavior. And then there's another guy, okay, who is always applauded and lauded for picking the right person for a job. And we all know that, like that manager, you know, that, oh, you have just the best eye to picking the best people for your team. But deep down, this person also knows that the truth is that that's not true, and he's ashamed. He or she is ashamed. He or she or whatever is ashamed. That person knows that more often than not, choosing the acceptable person is actually choosing that acceptable person over the right person. And in that definition, within the organization, that means that at a certain level, it's usually a man and he's white. So I'm not gonna go deep into that because that's another rabbit hole that is not for today. two cases now. People who are, applauded for things that they're doing, but deep down, the individuals know that they're like shitty. Like they really wouldn't like to do it, but they do it and they keep doing it. So they make this question in the article. Literally, it says, why on earth would people violate their own values like this? Why? And this is the question I've asked myself a lot during my entire career years, especially in this huge, huge monster company that I was part of. I saw it more often than not, too. And I wondered why. Why on earth would people violate their values like this? And the person who wrote the article says that in their experience, it has less to do with a person's individual flaws, okay? It's not that you're flawed and of course it comes out easily to you. Although there are some cases, she says, that of course there's people who are just fucked up, and they enjoy making others miserable as well. But it has more to do with the culture that these leaders or people who are managing other people operate in. And this is the part that's interesting because she starts breaking down the whole thing to another level that I really enjoyed while I was reading it. Culture, she says, is an incredibly powerful driver of human thought and behavior. Yeah, damn right. We know that. That's what culture is, right? An extract of human behavior. No. It tells us what is right and wrong and good or bad, etc., etc. But then right, what is right these days? Because now I feel, and I felt this a lot when I was working, that the right things are being called right when they're wrong. And in society, we see it now too. They want us to accept something as right, but is it really right? But who defines what right is? And then she uses the word tribe to describe it, which is interesting because it's like you belong to a group, And today, these organizations represent for us what a tribe is for people in society in general. And they are so important to us, she says, and so powerful that far too often the rules of our organizational culture overshadow the values and the norms of the other cultures we belong to. And when she talks about other cultures we belong to, we're talking about general, national, community, or even family. So we are overputting our values and norms and principles because of an organizational culture. And that sucks. Like, if people are doing this, do you understand it? Like, it sucks. Why? No. Why would you put on a facade of something you don't believe in and something you're not? Like, deep down to the core, you're not. And that's probably the issue I had, I could never let go, and I would fight that motherfucker to the end if I knew I was right. It cost me a lot of promotions, I'm sure, but I don't regret it at the end. Now, this isn't necessarily bad, okay? Unless the organization we belong to has a toxic culture. So until that moment, this person is explaining that, okay, fine, you find yourself sacrificing certain things that you believe in. And that's all right. That's all right. Unless you're part or you belong to a toxic culture or work environment. And this is where it starts getting more interesting, because it says the power of a toxic culture. If you're wondering whether your organizational culture is unhealthy, here are some of the signs I've been seeing in companies that I've studied. So this person actually took the time to study a bit what certain good, big, old-ass organizations are made up of. The pressures to covering. And of course, there's this research that she quotes, and I read it as well. Kenji Yoshino and Christy Smith's research has shown that covering affects a majority of people in the workplace. And hell yeah, it does, because I saw it a lot too, you know? And when they called covering, it's just what the word it says by itself, you know? Covering up for others that you shouldn't be covering up for. Like trying to, you know, sugarcoat something. That would be the phrase to describe it. No. We have to understand that the respect for other people and the compassion that we should all understand that everybody deserves is what should count. But no, we're covering up for people who are just doing a bad job. And that happened to me, you know, at some point. I want to say this, like when I came into that company where I was, which by the way, I want to mention that again, it was 9 years there. I came in enthusiastic, okay? I came in willing to do my best, as I always do. Like I really, really always try to do my best at anything that I do. Well, a lot of things that I do personally in my personal life wouldn't really represent that because I have a hard time sticking to good habits. But when it comes to working, I really try to go by the rules and play by the rules and do the right thing so that I am giving back what I'm being paid for. So I do a good job, I think, in general. But then I also realized that, yeah, you know, sometimes I ended up covering for others. I had this toxic boss at the beginning, like toxic. His behavior was toxic. And I covered up for a couple of years that I had to go through that toxic relationship with him. And this person is already long gone and doing something actually similar, but somewhere else. Which I hope that he has overgrown those bad traits. I think he has. I hope he has. But the thing that I want to say and why I stopped here is because I picked up part of those bad traits. I was younger, of course. Not that I'm going to justify my age to be the reason why I did it. But I surely looked up to that person as my example, you know, because I had never been giving like that type of responsibility before. Like I've done other jobs before, of course. I had been working since I was 17, don't get me wrong. And I had managed people, like I had subordinates before, but not at the level I was in that moment. Unfortunately, I picked up the wrong things and I thought they were right. And that also cost me a lot afterwards because I had to learn that that was not right. Until this day, I regret it because I know that I also affected other people while I was at that. But anyway, my point is that it happens, and it happened like I covered for someone that I shouldn't have. I should have called that out before, but I didn't. Hyper-competitiveness. Well, we all know this, right? They push us to be hyper-competitive because we are made to think that being a bully will get you out there faster because everybody's out there to get you. And the truth is, most of the time it is. Because everybody is on the same mindset most of the time. Like, I better watch out for these motherfuckers. Because if I just let my guard down, they're going to eat me up. And you know what? There's a lot of people out there who are out there to get you. But there's other people who are not. So we have to understand that not everybody is out there to get us. And this hyper competitiveness that she talks about here is also important to recognize in the workspace. You know, the sabotage is a common tactic. Like, people on purpose try to sabotage others. And of course, the outcomes of it in the worst case scenario are illness, the famous burnout, and sexual harassment are just things that can prevail, and people don't feel safe. And this is more and more common in the workplace. But nobody likes to talk about it sometimes because they're afraid. They're afraid of talking about it because nobody wants to lose their job and nobody wants to be categorized as the problematic one. So it keeps happening. So there's this constant vigilance, and fear and adrenaline that is required to survive in this type of companies. And in between, you compromise your intelligence because then you're watching out for yourself all the time. And of course, you're making decisions that are not the best decisions. So your decision making is out of order, and ultimately it hits you to the bottom line. Okay, so then suddenly you find yourself in the race to the bottom instead of the race to the top, because you're bringing out the worst in yourself trying to compete against others, and that's not good either. And I did that too. I made that mistake too. Now, there's a nature in me that is competitive, and that's nothing wrong either. I want to clarify that one. Like, there's nothing wrong if you are a natural competitive person, because it always makes you want to like bring more out of yourself, like to excel. There's nothing wrong with that. The wrong thing to do, though, is what she explained here, which is trying to sabotage others while you're doing it. And that I don't agree with, of course. You do not have to sacrifice others. It's like the Machiavellic form of doing it, right? The means to an end, and that's never good. That's never good, okay? Now, pressure to overwork, of course, we've seen that a lot. For reasons having to do with our personal psychology, she said, and insecurities, the pressures of high-performance organizations and our work in our pocket world, working from dawn to dusk, even if we work in companies where people and collaboration are valued. And yes, they have the speech, you know? Yeah, we're team worker. You're a team worker. And yeah, we appreciate how collaborative you are. Truth is, they're overworking people. Sometimes. Not that everybody's doing it, but let's be honest. Most of the time, it happens too. They're putting that pressure on you to overwork and to prove that you're capable of putting in more than your colleague. And that's not good either. So slowly we fall into the trap of, okay, so now we're working on the weekends, and yeah, I did it for the first weekend, and then it becomes a habit, you know, let's do it for the whole year. Somebody quit on us and we really need your help, and we know that you're good at it, and we know you can do it. You have all the capacity, and we might throw in a bonus, although we're sacrificing your personal life and mental health through it, but fuck it. You have to prove that you are in it, right? And that you're capable and that you're committed to the company. So we allow it too. We're caught up in the toxic culture work environment, but we allow it too. The problem is you're compromising yourself through it. Your creativity is going to be affected, and of course, you're going to have an overall lower productivity. which will make you unhappy because you know that you're not giving the best of you for what you're doing. So that's toxic. But again, she starts talking about culture. And what can we really do about culture? Cultures that force us to compromise our best selves aren't good for us or for our organizations. Let's face it. You're probably not going to be able to single-handedly change the culture of your entire organization. We won't. Like, there's a saying in Spanish that I don't know how to really translate in verbatim to English, but it's like one bird is not going to make spring. You know what it means? Like, you alone are not going to be able to do it all to make that change sometimes. Some people manage to do it, like, but it's not always the case. It's hard. So we have to understand that too. We have to create this microculture that allows us to control the situation. So if you are specifically in a management position where you can do it, then go for it. Try to do the right things and not make these mistakes. Because especially with these companies grow to be these monsters and huge money-making machines, everything goes out the window and the focus is on that. And then the managers that they have in place also focus on that. And then the rest of the people is left with following up with the culture. And it's all becoming a toxic work environment. So that's the tricky part there. Now, here's how we can change that. Well, of course, first we start with ourselves, right? So how's your health doing? And how do we see ourselves within the company that we do not fall into these traps of behaving in these ways? And are we taking into consideration what the career that we have been pursuing within the company is doing for us and what it brings in others? And you know what? That is a conversation that I had with myself for the past 3 years. And I said this and I shared with my partner most of the time, which was, I feel like they're bringing out the worst in me most of the time. And I hate who I become. And I hate to find myself behaving this way and being such a negative person that I know I'm not, but they bring this out of me and it's almost like they expect it, because otherwise I wouldn't survive a day out there. And that's what happened to me last year, in particular, when I was here, transitioning from being in Latin America for a long time and then facing this cultural shock here, coming to France, but facing the cultural environment that was going on in the office. I wasn't mentally prepared for it, I have to admit. And that just fucked up with my mind. And I realized that I thought I was escaping from it when I came here. Because you're jumping to the other side of the world and this is supposed to be at another level because it's a first world country and you're coming from a third world environment. And things are supposed to be better here, just by default. But the truth is they weren't. Like, the environment within the office workspace that I had here was shittier than anything that I had experienced before in my professional experience. And I cannot start to explain how much that affected me mentally and emotionally, because I just can't put it into words. It's a feeling, And I thought I was escaping, and I thought, okay, the toxic cycle is over and I'm able to start over again. But I was wrong. It actually felt worse, and I took another stand to it that was even worse, which is I didn't fight anymore. I just didn't have the energy anymore. I just took it all in all the time. And I said, I'm not doing anything. I'm not reacting to it. You're new here. You have to adapt. You have to keep yourself at a lower, level, because you don't want them to see that negative side of you that they brought up before. It was even worse. I started getting lost. I started getting more mistreated. And then I found myself being the one that I'm being stepped on all the time because I let it happen. So start with yourself. I agree with her on that one. Repair relationships. Of course, fix work relationships that have soured or are emotionally draining. This one is a hard one, I don't think I could have gone back and really fixed anything. It was too late. And that's the problem. And she encourages you to make yourself some questions. And I did these questions, and that's some of the reasons why I decided to take a different path and let go of the mistakes that I have made before. And I hope it means something in the future. I cannot prove it to anyone right now. I wish I could go back. We cannot turn back time, right? We could just move forward. So I'll move forward. But I do have to apologize to anyone who had to experience my naivety and my bad form of leadership that I thought was a right one, because that's what I saw and I just mimicked. So I apologize for that. Like, nobody really deserves to be, talked to in a negative way. Like, no matter who it is. So I'm sorry. And I do have to say that I'm okay with it in some way, because deep down, although I was not having the best approach, the intention was the best one, okay? And I'm talking about those people that I pushed them to the limit, but it's only because I knew that they were able to bring something better out of themselves. So for that, I apologize. And I saw their potential, and I hope that they're doing better, because that only brings me joy. Like, I've seen some of them advance, and I'm happy for them. I couldn't be happier for them. And then there's others that we know that shouldn't be promoted, and I'm going to talk about that soon. But those, no, I don't regret anything. I don't regret being who I was, which was myself. I was being myself, okay? But those, and you know who you are, like, fuck it, I don't know you, an apology. No, not me, girl. Okay, so, but we do have to ask some questions, and I liked the questions that she mentions. Have I been too hard on my colleague this past few months? Do people see me as a person to complain to about the boss, project, and company? I became that to some people at some point, which is interesting, because normally people would say that I was too tough, but I found a lot of people reaching out to ask for advice. So I didn't understand it, but in some way I felt flattered, and that makes me feel good. Am I fostering cynicism instead of hope? And that's important, because sometimes we just have dark humor, and I do have one. So we want to make sure that we're not being cynic all the time, and not everybody gets it like you do. Now, be honest, but don't be too hard on yourself either. While she said that, that's true. We have to analyze ourselves, but not be too hard on ourselves either while we're doing it. Form a coalition. That's a good one. Once you've done the groundwork, make sure that if you are managing a team, that you are able to share that with your team in order to make the best out of it and conduct them to the best behavior they can have. And of course, she mentions this at the end, and this is important because I don't want to sit here and just throw shit at the company that I used to work at because it didn't work out between them and myself. That's not right either. You know, there's like in personal relationships too. There's two sides to the story, and there's two people to blame there because there wasn't only one person in the relationship, it was two. So in this case, it's two sides as well. But what I want to read that last part that she says, it's all too easy to blame a dysfunctional company culture for our misbehavior. But you don't have to be subject to this toxicity that characterizes your organization. You can do something about it by using your emotional intelligence skills. That's important, and choosing to act in ways that you can be proud of. And that's important. If you have gone through the whole cycle of analyzing and saying, okay, I admit this, I don't agree with this, and I'm willing to compromise on this thing, but not on that one. And you know, it's like when you're making a decision in your life and you write down the cons and the pros. And if something points out to the negative, then just leave. It's time for you to leave. And that's the best decision we can make. And that is something that I regret. Staying somewhere for too long where you don't belong anymore. Just don't do it. It brings a lot of sacrifice with it. And what you're sacrificing mostly is your mental health. And because I want to make sure that we emphasize on the good things that we should be focusing on to have a better mental health, inevitably, I have to quote this too. Did you know that the World Health Organization has a whole portal that works on this mental health? And they do have also information about what having a good mental health, a healthy one, at work represents in your life as an individual. So I'm sure that a lot of people who have human resources positions have never come across this site. So if you work in human resources and have never taken the time to visit the World Health Organization site and read about the information that is there, you should, by the way. Now, key facts about what I'm going to read right now. Decent work is good for your mental health. Now, poor working environments pose a risk to mental health, and that's important to identify. Okay? And when we're talking about poor working environments, the WHO, like the World Health Organization, is defining things like discrimination, inequality, excessive workload, low job control, etc. And we're going to go through a list that I'm sure that you're going to also understand that you've seen it, you've either lived it or just happen to be going through it yourself. And there's a statistic here that says 15% of working age adults were estimated to have a mental disorder by 2019, which is pre-pandemic. Would you want to take a guess of how much that number has grown since then? Myself included, what I just shared with you. After the pandemic, I reevaluated my whole career in the company I was. So, of course, that 15% has doubled by now. Globally, an estimated 12 billion working days are lost every year to depression and anxiety at a cost of $1 trillion per year in loss of productivity. And it's not about the money that it costs. It's the amount of time. 12 billion working days are lost every year. Okay? So people are not being productive because they're dealing with these mental health situations that are related directly to the workplace. There are effective actions to prevent mental health risk at work, protect and promote mental health at work, and support workers with mental health conditions. And again, mental health conditions doesn't mean you need a psychiatrist and that you're going crazy and that you're going to start chewing your foot. No, it doesn't mean that. We're going to understand that further. Okay? Now, risks to mental health at work. I want to read this list because I had a good time when I was reading through it. Here are the list of things that are categorized by the World Health Organization as risks to mental health at work. And they include 1. Underuse of skills or being underskilled for work. Okay, whether you have skills, but they're not taking advantage of those skills for you to make the best out of what you have, or you're underskilled for work and they put you in a position where whether it's you that knows that you're not capable of doing the job or they know that you're not capable of doing the job, but they insist of keeping you there because for them it represents other type of benefits. And the outcome is it takes a toll on your mental health. Excessive workloads or work pace, understaffing. We know that, right? We've all been through that at some point. We are doing somebody else's job, or that nice person that's licking ass out there is not doing their job, and guess who's doing the job? The people who actually do the job. So we see that. Or understaffing. Cheapskates that are not hiring enough people to cover the right amount of work that they should. Or they're just cutting off staff. And suddenly you find yourself covering for the people who were cut off. Long, unsocial, or inflexible hours. This, I think, has improved a lot, but still, in some places, it happens. People are being asked to work longer hours. Lack of control over job design or workload. Okay. There's no really a clear path as to what should be the workload for each person in a team, or how should we design it in a better way so it can be distributed in the most efficient way. True. And when that is not done right, we know that it also starts affecting people mentally. Unsafe or poor physical working conditions. Now, in the big organizations, this rarely happens. You usually get given the tools for you to work, and the conditions are there because they have to go through audits and everything. But still, there's places where people find themselves being in danger, whether it's physically or eventually it affects them mentally because they're afraid that something's going to happen to them while they're putting in the work. Organizational culture that enables negative behaviors. Now, this one, I'm going to take my time for this one. You listen to me now, because it says organizational culture that enables negative behaviors. And long and behold, I saw it. Yep, I saw it. Enabling negative behaviors because, like I read to you before in the Harvard Business Review, it's about the culture in the company, right? We have to be committed. We have to play the nice one. We have to agree, although we disagree, because otherwise you are problematic if you don't. And this enables negative behaviors. Just covering for others what we know is wrong. Covering for that person that we know is sucking cucumber, right? Yeah, you know who you are. You know who you are. Yeah, you know who you are. Who likes to suck cucumber to get past the work that you should be doing, or just to get that raise that you're looking for. And you just have to overpass that, because otherwise you can get in trouble if you say something. Or that person that is like a hummingbird, like Oh, it's making all the flowers happy with their attitude, but it's not really doing anything. And we're covering up for that person too. Or it's not only that they're doing sexual favors, but they're also nepotism, like I said at some point, like people who are just getting benefits because somebody likes them more than they like others, or because they play the same sport that their daughters or whatever play at school. So, seriously, eventually, after seeing these behaviors that are enabled because of organizational cultures, takes a toll on your mental health because you start to wonder, am I the problem here? Like, is there something wrong with my values? Like, do I have to agree with these things? And so on. Limited support from colleagues or authoritarian supervision. And this happens, and I became one of those persons that was too authoritarian sometimes. I regret it. I said it. I apologize. But it also takes a toll on other people's mental health. Violence, harassment, or bullying. We know that. Discrimination and exclusion. It's self explanatory. Discrimination and exclusion. Unclear job role. And this one is important. If your job role is not clear, you're going to have problems. Not only mental problems, but you're going to have issues because you're going to find yourself doing things that you're probably not supposed to be doing. Or maybe you're just doing them and you don't know that you're not supposed to be doing them and they're taking advantage of you. Or you are taking advantage of others, using that as an excuse if you're a leader or a manager. Okay? So make sure, just as a hint here or a suggestion, if you don't have a job description, even though you have 5 or 10 years in the company or more, but you've never got one, go get one. I promise you that it's going to save a lot of misunderstandings and it's going to make you realize that what you're doing is the right thing that you're supposed to be doing and it's within your responsibilities, or if you're simply just doing work that you shouldn't be doing and you're not even getting paid for. So, if you don't have a job description in your hands or in your computer, then please do yourself a favor and next Monday, go to the office and ask for one. Now, unclear job role, that was one. Okay, under or over promotion. And that bitch is true. Okay, under promotion, people who are always kicked around, they never get a promotion because they have very like soft personalities, you know? You better step it up, sis, because otherwise you're going to keep getting kicked around, and that's bitch who is doing the job like sucking cucumber out there is going to get your job and the promotion and the raise that you're not getting. So you have to step up. Now, over promotion, also, the other story, the other side of the story, this, the person who is like putting in the extra unwanted, not correct job, you know, that is not part of their job description. Okay, sucking cucumber again, is being over promoted and they don't even have skills. Okay, and over promotion for the wrong reasons too, just because some companies are cheapskates and they're trying to save money and they start over promoting people that they shouldn't, even though the people don't have the skills or are not prepared for the job positions. Job insecurity, right? You never know if you're going to be the next one on the list of layoffs. Inadequate pay, of course, if you're not paid fairly. Poor investment in career development. And although some of these big companies also have the great speech of, oh, we're working on promoting our people, and we have these portals that we have the places and sites where you can go and explore what you want your next career to be. Bullshit. We know that. Some of them are already arranged and you just publish it to make it appear that you're doing something. But anyway, poor investment in career development, like they have managers sitting there who don't care about promoting the people who are under them because they're afraid that these people are going to take their places. So that's the reality of things. And those are the things that are taking a mental toll on people. And this is what the WHO is referring to when they bring up this list. So, human resources people, human resources people. Yeah, do yourself a favor and read this list. read disinformation, and last but not least, conflicting homework demands. Well, that we know that changed a lot and shifted a lot during the pandemic too, which is crazy because the pandemic happened 5 years ago. But anyway, it's still going into whether we should call the workers to come in or we should allow them to stay at home. Just let them do whatever they want to do. If they're doing the job, I mean, who does it hurt, you know? And the excuse that, oh, we want to bring you in, that's another one that I fucking hate. And we want to bring people in the office again so that we can share and we get more of a spirit of team work. Yach, really? Really? We want to build a good work environment that is not toxic and that's not fucked mentally the people that you have there, then follow the freaking list. It's listed there. It's so easy. Oh my god. But anyway, that's the list, and I really wanted to share that with you because I thought it was important. Isn't it right? Isn't it right though? It's so right. So of course, we're going to find ourselves challenging situations that we will have to confront, and being part of toxic work spaces is part of that. And how do we do that though? How do we do that though? Well, we have to set boundaries. Now, before I move on to that, I also wanted to share with you the name of the article. I'm not going to go through it and dissect it because it's taking too long for me to do this, but The Guardian also has good articles about this. And for example, they mention something, and you don't have to let yourself get caught up in this too, because it's all part of the plan, right? The part of the plan of the organizational culture and how committed you are to a company. And how are people showing it off these days? The same way we are showing it off, and I'm guilty about that too. I admitted that with my guest Hugo in his episode, that I fall into the trap of posting things on social media where we all post the nicest things that we have going on in our lives. So the people now are doing the same thing in the professional world. And you know which one I'm going to mention. Yeah, fucking LinkedIn. Okay, fucking LinkedIn. It's absolute, everybody seems to be, and that's the name of the article in The Guardian if you want to go and check it out. Everyone on LinkedIn is absolutely crushing it, or so it seems. Go give yourself an interesting read there. And the conclusion is that LinkedIn is not the place to be honest. It's a place to sell your products, your services, and most of all, yourself. And basically, it's just one more social media that you have to deal with. Do I love it? No. Is it a necessary thing these days? Kind of. Like most of the lazy ass human resources people are using it, using bots to respond to people when you're going through job searches as well. And that is something that I'm going to go in a small rant about right now. Because you know what? Fuck that shit. Fuck that shit. You applying for more than 30 positions in a week because you're desperate trying to get a job, and you get the same copy paste response from all of them. Like we've gotten a lot of I'm not quoting this the right way, but it says something in the lines like, of course I'm going to use my own language for this, but it goes something in the lines like, okay, we've received a lot of CVs, yours is just one in the bunch, and there's definitely better people out there who have a better profile, or at least they have completed their profile using AI with better description than you, bitch. So we're not taking in your, but we will consider you and we will try to add you to our pool of CVs here, and good luck. Yeah, seriously. It's so lame, but that's what's going on. And unfortunately, there's algorithms that they're using to discard you through these sites. But going back to the original point here, the article is quite good. If you want to take a look at it, just wanted to share that with you because I read it when I was preparing for this episode as well. I don't know. I started going through information. But anyway, how can we do it better to deal with all the situations? Well, we have to learn how to set boundaries. And again, going to the first comparison that we started off the episode with, setting boundaries, whether it's in a personal relationship or a workplace relationship, it's important because we need to understand to identify what's acceptable and what's not. Okay? There's impacts about this that are described by professionals. Brené Brown is great at doing that, you know. She has also made studies and has really taken the time to analyze how the renowned vulnerability in the workplaces has to do a lot with establishing these boundaries that prioritize your well being. And that's important. We have to feel good about it. We have to really feel good about what we're doing. Okay. And she has a book called Daring Greatly that she wrote that has to do a lot with this. Well, to finish up, because I have to wrap it up now, where am I at this point? And where you might find yourself if you are going through something similar like I am. Yeah, I am in a job search after this negotiation to stop the work relationship with my company. And I am doing that here in France. Not easy. There's good things about this process that I'm learning, and there's also tough things that I'm still going to have to deal with that are going to be hard and tumultuous. But overall, I am trying to stay positive and firm in my beliefs, in my self worth, especially because many, many times when you're getting rejected, when you are not being accepted as easily as you thought you would have, even though you have a very good experience and you have all the reference that could back it up, but suddenly you find yourself in another different place where nobody gives a shit. That's the truth. They don't know who you are. And that's okay, that's okay. That's the truth. But you don't have to lose that self worth. You don't have to let them crush that self worth. You have to remember yourself constantly what you are really worth. Like, because you know who knows you better than you? Who knows how much sacrifice you've put into things, into learning a new language, into specializing in what you specialize, into studying what you had to study to get to where you are, or putting in all those hours into work to gain all that experience that you have. Only you know that. And if you don't believe it first, it's going to be very hard to transmit that to others. Well, if you get that interview. Because, like I said, a lot of us are just being rejected by an email that is probably written by a bot, which I know it's unfair. But when you get that interview, you have to be ready for it. We can have a conversation about how to make the best out of it and the things that I've learned about how to improve and prepare yourself for that. So it's a call to action, people, after all. It's a call to action. Just thank you for listening. If you have thoughts and you want to share something, please go ahead. Make sure that you subscribe to our channels and social media and platforms, because that's the way you're going to keep receiving information about new content coming in. As you know, you can find us in the mainstream platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We also have a YouTube channel, Facebook page, TikTok, and of course, for the millennials, we do have Instagram. So thank you for listening again, and I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye.